You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. My name is Nick Beveridge, here with my co-host, Mr. Jeremy Kitchen, in the house.
In the house. Nick Beveridge, how's it going today, man?
Doing pretty good. It is Friday. Actually, I had a flat tire this morning, so I pumped some air in that before we started this podcast, and I'll be heading to Les Schwab's after this.
Did you pump it up?
I pumped it, just like I was told. No more than 40 PSI.
Speaking of pumped, we are so pumped to have our guest on today, Craig Curelop of Bigger Pockets fame and writer of The House Hacking Strategy. Great book if you're interested in house hacking. Nick, do you want to talk about Craig a little bit and just about our conversation?
Craig, what's really cool about Craig, he moved to our home, not my personal house, but like North Idaho. He moved up here. Our team helped him buy a house, and he is a man of his book. He's house hacking his personal, pretty nice house, and then he's buying other properties in the area and house hacking them, and into like multiple units. The man does what he says he's going to do. We talk about building real estate teams, not just about house hacking. So we get into his main business and what he's doing to produce income. A lot of good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy this one.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast, Jeremy and Craig Curelop. Thank you for being here and welcome to North Idaho.
Thanks, man. We got a warm welcome last night when a transfuser blew and we were basically like, the lights were going all crazy on us for like all night basically. And so we had utility guys at our house like until 4 a.m. It was crazy. So, hey, that's Idaho though, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually, okay. So your power went out and you got it restored that quickly?
We got it restored quickly. Yeah. Honestly, I was impressed. We had an electrician come out and we had the utility guy come out within an hour and a half. So
got it done. I love it.
That's pretty quick. I grew up in North Idaho, and usually when the power goes out, you're just like prepare for 24 hours of not having power. So that's actually pretty nice.
Prepare for a week and hope for 24 hours. Yeah. No, I'm glad we made it. Yeah.
So Craig, you've done a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, you've been noted for doing your house hacking strategy and everything like that. I want to kind of go back to the beginning and talk about what got you started in real estate investing.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And I think, like a lot of people, I just didn't want to be stuck in the rat race. I got a little taste of that rat race. I was working on a job that I absolutely hated in California. And yeah, man, it was just like there was no end to it, right? Like my best case scenario was 10 years from now, I'd get promoted a couple rings up the ladder, be 30 feet down the hallway, and maybe making $50,000 or $100,000 more than I was then.
Get a bigger window?
I did have a big window, but it was only on the second story, so it wasn't even much to look at. And so, I was just like, this is just not what I want to do. Like, what I want to do with my life. Like, I heard some quote that was, life. What really matters in life are experiences and relationships. And I wasn't getting any of that at my W-2 job. And so I started thinking, okay, like, how can I do the things that I truly love to do? At the time, it was like travel and spend time with friends and all that stuff. And so I started thinking, so I read Tim Ferriss's book, actually. That was the book that like got me thinking, 4-Hour Workweek. And in that book, he talks about passive income and thinking about your income on a monthly basis instead of an annual basis because it's easier to digest. And if your passive income exceeds your expenses, then you're financially independent. And he wasn't so much about real estate, right? And I was living in Silicon Valley at the time. So I was like, okay, like let me try to start a business idea. Like I had like stupid idea after stupid, like literally like 8 or 9 stupid ideas that just were like not going anywhere. But then I literally one day, this old lady who was my landlord, I lived in like a 20-unit building in San Jose. She comes in, she's probably 65 years old, little like Mexican lady, super cute, really nice. And I give her a check for $2,000 for me and my roommate at the time. And I was like, oh my God, like there's 20 places here. And we don't have the nicest place by any means, but let's just say she's collecting $2,000 a month from all 20 of these places. That's $40,000 a month in rent. And I was like, if she's owned this place for a while, that could be like free. And I was like, oh my God, like this lady knows something that I don't know. And then I started learning about real estate. I fell into bigger pockets, and then the rest is history.
That's awesome. So if we could rewind slightly, I'm really curious. What kind of businesses did you go after that you said failed?
Oh man. Okay, I don't even remember all of them to be honest, because we were just so like scratch the surface. But I can remember two of them. One of them was a like I was like really into fantasy football at the time, and I was really mad that I couldn't watch like my team play. Like, so I was like, oh, like, wouldn't it be cool if I could just like select all the players and like watch all of my teams and like when they have the ball, it goes to their screen and all that. Like, I thought that'd be a really cool idea, especially for like fantasy football gurus. And then I was like, oh shit, like there's licensing rights. And I'm like, I'm like way in over my head here. I did, and then another one me and my buddy were thinking about was he was in the education space, so some sort of like educational platform that's like, oh, you can like for kids to learn something through this like gamify learning kind of thing. And we started doing it, and we're like, honestly, like we're just so in over our heads, we don't really care about this. And there were other ideas too. I honestly don't remember them at this point.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, so you recognize right away that this landlord is making so how much of your income were you giving her? Do you remember?
So I was making a base of $65,000 a year, and I was paying $1,000 a month in rent. My buddy was paying the other thousand, and so whatever that is. I mean, so not 20%
Yeah, one fifth of your income
of my base. Yeah.
you're handing to this lady, and a bunch of other people were doing that too. So the way I love to think about it is like there's there's no other company out there that captures that much income from somebody, and it's just incredible to like really think about like what other business can you on a monthly reoccurring basis capture one fifth to almost half of somebody's income on a monthly basis. Like Apple, Samsung, all these big old companies would love to capture that much income out of somebody, but it's just nothing can compete. And that income, I mean, it doesn't all just go away to a mortgage. I mean, a lot of it's going towards your principal payment over time. I mean, and going towards tax benefits, and it's just it's just insane and mind boggling when you think about what a hack on income that can be. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree, man. And like this woman just like knew something. Like, and so yeah, that was it, man. That was like the okay. And I would think I was like 22 or 23 at the time. So honestly, I'm just blessed that I discovered it so early, right? Because I know so many people that are in their 40s and still in that rat race. You know, my 50s, even hell, even my parents who are like in their early 60s at this point, like still kind of in that like they're just like counting down the days to retirement, you know?
That's interesting for sure. So my parents definitely have that the poor dad mentality for sure, right? So my dad, I love my dad so much, but I see him working until he's gonna die working, unfortunately. And that's part of my motivation in getting in. Like I want to help take care of my parents, right? I want to be able to provide them more than their $2,000 retirement when they're 65. And it's definitely on my list, so it's good stuff. But you spoke with Nick earlier just about hacking. Can we talk about house hacking just a little bit? I know you're the house hacking guy. We got your book right here, by the way.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Look at
yeah.
that.
So I read this book, House Hacking Strategy by Craig Curelop, is an incredible book. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the book and what about house hacking is?
Yeah, so house hacking, for those that don't know, it's the idea that you're gonna buy a 1 to 4 unit property with a low percent down. And by low, I mean typically between 3 and 5%. You're gonna live in one unit and rent out the other unit or the other rooms or whatever place you want to get. That rent covers your mortgage and you live for free, thereby eliminating what likely is your largest expense in housing. And so that, and all the while you're picking up a property, that property is appreciating, you're able to save more money because you're not spending on rent, right? Effectively, you're saving, an extra ten to $20,000 a year that could use for a down payment on your next house hack a year later, and then the snowball starts going, and you can start really building a pretty big portfolio.
I love it because it's really the easiest way that the average person can get into real estate investing, right? If you have a house and you have an extra room, you can make money off it. It's so good.
It is the most repeatable process. Anyone can do it. I've talked to probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of house hackers by this point, and I've never heard a single person tell me they wish they didn't house hack. It's always been the leverage point of their like real estate investing. I'd say like 90% of people who are in real estate investing started with a house hack one way or the other.
Yeah. And I got to totally agree too. Being a real estate agent and seeing how investors are made, it seems like that's kind of the ground floor. That's where they are able to actually start. Just like you said, just if they have a job, if they can scrounge up 3% or 0%, sometimes, depending on the type of loan they're getting, buy a 1 to 4 unit property, and then the rest will be history as long as they keep stepping up their game. And my wife and we actually kind of did a form of house hacking before we actually bought our residence. My wife is the kind of person that just does not want roommates. So the only way I was able to figure that out is by buying a couple of rentals before we bought our house. And we had 2 rentals that were offsetting our mortgage by half.
Did you ever, Nick, did you ever think of another way to house hack, like if you don't want roommates, is just to buy that same house for 3% down, still live there for a year, but just live there with just you guys, and then just move out next year, rent out the current place. So you're still building your portfolio by moving a little slower, albeit, but like absolutely still a way you could do it. There's always a way to do it. You just got to think of, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if I wasn't married to my wife, that would definitely be the route I would have went. But she's just not the type that likes to move.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You got to make, she's number one. So, you know,
Regardless of that, your portfolio is still growing, Nick. I mean, whatever growth rate you have, it's still increasing. So, and it's all about your comfort level and everything too. So,
Awesome. So, Craig, you've gotten your claim to fame by being that house hacking guy. You wrote the book. Every podcast you go out and listen to, if you try to find you, other than your personal channel, it's almost always about house hacking. And I'm gonna just go on a limb and say, are you sick of talking about house hacking yet? Can we talk about other things?
I do love house hacking. Don't get me wrong, but you know, I'm more than happy to talk about some other stuff as well. Yeah, again, I'm an open book, so whatever you guys want, I'm here.
Okay. I would love to talk to you about your real estate sales business if you're open to. If we can talk, you moved to Idaho, but I know you have a business in Seattle, in Colorado, now in California as well, and you're starting one up here in North Idaho. But can you talk to us about your real estate agent business? What like your organizational chart kind of looks like, who's helping you, and how you got started in this?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So I guess I'll start with how I got started, just because I like the chronological order there. But so I started off like, well, so I was working at Bigger Pockets actually to start, and I got my license while there, and I was investing in real estate there. And I had picked up my real estate license just to help myself, so I could basically save on that commission once a year. And then one of my buddies asked me if I could help him, and I said, yeah, sure. And so I did, and I made like 10 grand, and it was the easiest 10 grand I ever made. And I was like, huh, there's something here. Like I wouldn't mind helping more people out and getting 10 grand. And so like I did that over and over and over again. And before I knew it, in my first year, I did almost 100 deals. And like it wasn't even a full year. It was like 10 months. And so I was like, holy crap! Like this thing, like we have something here. And so and Nick and Jeremy, I'm sure you guys know, like if you're doing 100 deals a year by yourself, you are not doing anything else. Thank God that was COVID because I didn't travel. I couldn't travel, thank God. Like that was all I was doing was working because that's all there was to do.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing like 30 deals by myself, let alone 100.
100 feels a lot for even a team.
It was insane. Like you can ask, I was, dating my girlfriend at the time. Every single weekend, Saturday morning till Sunday night, I was doing showings. And if I wasn't doing showings, I was writing contracts or getting on the phone with people, et cetera, et cetera. And so basically at the end of that, I was like, oh my gosh, I took a step back for a second and I was like, I either need to like maybe muscle this out for one more year and just retire, or I can maybe create a business out of this and really start impacting a lot of people because I hit my cap, right? I can maybe help 100 people a year. But what if I created a team, right? What if I created a team and I had, 10 or 15 agents that each helped 10 or 15 people a year? And really that number could be unlimited. And so then we can help so many more people achieve what our ultimate mission is with the FI team, which is to help people achieve financial independence through real estate investing. And so like me doing it all myself is not aligned with our goal because I can't help that many people that way. I want to help as many people as possible achieve financial independence through real estate investing. So we can have a shit ton of people at age 30, age 40, hanging out and doing things and not worrying about a W-2.
If we can go back and just talk about that number, 100 real estate transactions as a single agent without a team. Here's some. So I'm assuming you did a lot of. You worked with buyers mostly, or did you do listings as well?
Mostly buyers, all buyers actually.
All buyers. Okay. Here's an interesting stat for all those agents or soon to be agents out there. When you're working with a buyer as a realtor, the average amount of hours you're going to spend with that buyer is 40 hours.
Jeez. I didn't know that.
That's whether you sell anything or not to them. So with Craig doing 100 transactions, guess what? That's 4,000 hours is what he should have worked that year. You divide that by 365, you're talking about 11 hours a day, 365 days a year, no breaks, and closing 100% of the clients he's dealing with. I find that hard to believe. So tell me, Craig, what were you doing that was different than the average agent? Because you clearly were working more efficiently. You're not. I know you're not a robot.
No, no, not.
Tell me what you were doing differently than the average agent, because you work the numbers, and it's impossible almost to do 100 transactions by yourself with no help.
Absolutely, man. So I guess I did end up hiring a transaction coordinator in there. So that was one huge lift. That was efficient. Now, one good thing about being an agent with investors and with house hackers is that they understand, especially house hackers, is that they understand that, and I helped them understand that it doesn't matter you don't want to get the perfect deal as a house hack. You want to get a deal immediately as soon as you can, because once you close on that deal is when your timer starts to get the next one. And so you're not going to get rich off of one house hack. You'll get rich off of 4 or 5 house hacks in 4 or 5 years. But if you take 6 months to find the best deal, and I did a blog post on this too, if you wait 6 months to find the best deal, and even if you do get something that's like 80% of what you would otherwise, you're losing out on a year or it will be a year after your second one if you wait 18 months twice. On it, you could have another house, which is going to provide you more passive income and more appreciation and more of that. And so the power of house hacking is not in getting the best deal. It's just getting a deal that works, that's available at that time. And so if you could I was able to explain that pretty well. People understood that. And I'm not like, this was not me trying to like get more money or anything like that either. This is me just being like, this is what it is. I did the same thing. Exactly 1 year, I closed on every house hack. I just took what was available and made sure it worked, because I knew that I wanted to become financially independent after my third house hack. And so, so once explaining that to people, that was a big thing. Obviously, the transaction coordinator was help. So that, I guess, I didn't have a team of agents, but I did have my transaction coordinator, and she was super valuable. And people also who came to me knew about house hacking. They had probably read my book, or they heard me on a podcast or something like that. So they knew, liked, and trusted me. I was very quick. I was pretty good at building rapport when doing showings. If the house didn't work, I was the first one to be like, yeah, this house sucks. Like, you don't want this one, right? And I think that's really important too. It's like being honest and being someone that's very liked. Sorry, that was long-winded, but hope that was good.
No, that was perfect. So let's backtrack that for the agents out there. You did a couple of really smart things. You hired a transaction coordinator, which I'm assuming you just paid them a fee rate, or was it an hourly rate?
It was no, at that time it was just per transaction.
Okay. So that easily shaves off 20 hours of working with a buyer when you can shave off all that post accepted offer transaction work. So let's say 20 hours is gone there. And then you did something really smart. You actually had a conversation with your buyers ahead of time, educated them a little bit on what you recommend. And what probably made it so easy for you is that you actually believed in what you were selling, right?
And I was doing it myself. Yeah.
You had so much faith, and people can see that. I mean, it's like having a personal trainer that's like ripped. Like, you're gonna do what that person tells you to do. So anyway, I just think that's fascinating to me. Anyway, just knowing what the numbers are and knowing what you're able to do so quickly, and not even a year. You said 10 months. So at what point did you decide that you needed to start building a team, and what did that start to look like?
So it was the end of that first year, and that was when I was like, okay, I need people to start helping me out. And so that was a roller coaster too, man. I'm sure you felt the same way, because there's a thing like when you do everything yourself, there's so much control that you have, and you don't think that anybody could possibly do as good of a job as you, but you do need the help. And so I had one guy come on. He started helping their clients. They were falling out. He wasn't getting anybody under contract. Like they were going with somebody else. I was losing people. And I was like, okay, screw it. I'm just doing it myself. Like, so I went back and forth like that a few times. And I was like, and then I like had this realization after the second time I went through that, I'll just do it. I'll just take this back and do it myself. And it was like, you kind of have to cut the grass to make it grow, right? Like you're going to lose clients in your scaling because you got to teach people. But once you get over that hump and then your agents become better than you at buying and selling houses, you're able to make a lot more. And so you have to like be okay with making a little bit less money as you kind of like reinvest. You're going to lose people. It's like vacancy in real estate, right? Like you're going to lose people, but eventually it's all part of the investment that's going to make you grow more later.
Yeah, I kind of grew this very similar way where it was really kind of hard to kind of take on people and let go of responsibilities, and you just struggle with it in your mind. You're like, shoot, I'm going to lose clients. They're not going to treat them as well as I could. This admin person's not going to do the paperwork as much as I, as neatly as I want it done. And what I began to learn is, no, these people are way better than me. and and I had to convince myself that, because I saw it, like when I brought on Joe Turner as my first buyer's agent, she would actually close like a staggering more amount of clients than I could. Like her closing ratios were like 80% when mine were probably closer to 30%. So I convinced myself I can't work with buyers anymore. Just give her every single one. She's going to do a much better job. She's doing something better. And then and it was the same thing with the paperwork when we found the right person.
Yeah, and Nick, I don't know if you went through a couple people before you got to Joe, or if you got lucky and found Joe as your first hire. But for those listening, if you're thinking about building a team, your first hire, like very most likely, I think, at least with other business people that I've experienced, is not going to be like your best person. Like you're going to go through a couple, and you're going to keep having this. Oh my gosh, maybe I am the best person to do this thing. But when you find that Joe, then it's like, oh my God, like it's like a big weight is lifted off your shoulders, and you're like, this is what business is. This is fun.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you're well. Actually, I did get lucky with Joe. She was my first actual buyer's agent on my team, but I had to go through five different admin before we got the right piece to that puzzle. And I mean, admin's a big part of the business. It's 70-80% of the business is all marketing and admin and all the systems and following the processes. So it really took a long time to find the right person there. With Joe, I did get lucky, but I was very picky.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So anyway, tell us about, um, if you don't mind, keep going in depth, what it was like transitioning into building out a team, and what kind of responsibilities did you keep letting go of?
Yeah. So great question. So now I didn't forget about your question about like what my org chart looks like. I just want to take it chronologically, and we'll get there for sure. Um, and so the first hire was that transaction coordinator. I think that's probably any agent's first hire, and it's just 1099, super low risk hire. Second hire I made was in December of 2020, and that was an assistant. And so this was just a woman who was looking for a career change. She was a little older, but not she like had a very young spirit, and she looked. It was a very very high energy. Like so, nothing wrong with hiring older people either. You can't discriminate based on age, but like she fit into our culture, and so I hired her, and she was just my assistant. She was checking my email. That was big. I was getting a lot of emails. So she would like, I'd have one folder. Anything that I needed to answer, she would just put it in the folder. So instead of going through like 100 emails a day, I'd go through like three. Um, she would manage my calendar. She would, kind of just do anything I asked her to do. Make these phone calls I didn't want to make, like anything that wasn't talking to clients or like a high dollar value, I would have her do. And she did that for about 6 months, and she was really really good at it. And and I was like, you know what, like you're too good to be my assistant. And so we basically promoted her. into kind of this like chief of. It's so hard in a small company because it's hard to call somebody like your chief of ops when they're like your like first hire. But like she kind of ran more into like a role of helping agents as they onboarded. And we hired an assistant from the Philippines to do the email and the calendar and that's it and all that stuff. And so we kind of replaced her, and then she kind of graduated, and she's been kind of growing throughout the company as of today.
Awesome. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, no, I was just rolling with the conversation here. You guys were providing a lot of good stuff. So, we obviously talked about the benefits of having a team. Speaking to both of you, obviously Nick and Craig, you both run real estate teams. You're both high-level real estate investors. Like, you guys have a lot of similar characteristics. What do you think those characteristics are to get to that level for somebody listening?
You have to be really good looking.
That makes sense. That
I
makes
totally
sense.
agree.
Yeah. You have to be really smart, handsome, charming. Yeah. No. Man, Nick, maybe you want to. I don't know. I don't really.
Like what makes a leader, basically, in your opinion? So.
I personally think a lot of it has to do with just being able to be comfortable making decisions on a daily basis for people, because that's what a lot of people struggle with in the company is people don't want to make decisions. And if you could be that guy to make decisions, it certainly puts you up there as someone to be looked up to, other than my good looks. What do you think, Craig?
I think that's part of it, but I think somebody that's well liked and respected. And so you want to make sure that you're not coming off as selfish, you're not coming off as like an abundant mindset, I think is huge, right? Like everybody, like I know Nick's got a huge abundant mindset, Jeremy, you too. Like that's I think like the number one thing is like there's enough for everybody out there. That encourages team to help each other out and not be in competition with each other. And so I'd say like having that abundant mindset, being a good leader, setting a good example. Like you want, like everyone's looking up to you, so you need to be the ideal person. And so if you're not like, waking up early, you're not on time for meetings, you're not there for your team, how can you expect your team to be there for you? So being also that example as well.
Yeah, you need to be reliable. You need to answer the phone when your team's calling you, and you can't leave anybody hanging ever. That's something that I feel like is my number one priority, is just make sure that the team has what they need at all times. And if they have what they need at all times, I should get what I need.
Exactly right.
Yeah. And just going back into house hacking just a little bit too, Craig, I had a question down here. So, what makes a good deal for house hacking? I know you kind of talked about it's not the price of the house, but it's, getting it done. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so it's not, so a good house hack deal is just something that, in my opinion, if it reduces your rent expense, you're winning, right? If you're saving each month on rent, it's a win. And so, it all depends on your level of comfortability and what you want to do. So, a lot of people, and it depends on your area and what the houses look like in your area. A popular strategy is a rent by the room strategy. If you're young and you don't mind living with roommates, that's probably like one of the most profitable ones. If you were like, no, I do not want to live with roommates, I want to live by myself, well, then you might find a place where you can separate it, have a mother-in-law suite downstairs. You could Airbnb the downstairs, and so then you'll probably be around break even. A duplex, triplex, or quad, again, you have that privacy. So I can't say there's like one deal that's better than the others. It kind of just depends on what strategy you want to do, and then you figure out the house that then goes along with that strategy.
What made you think the Fi Guy? If you could go into that story, what made you decide on? Because that's a big decision in my eyes. Like, what are you going to personally brand yourself, and what are you going to stick with and commit to? And what made you think that?
So I was so this was when I was working at Bigger Pockets, and I was like, Josh Dorkin, who was working there at the time, he's the founder, um, and him and I were like we're like fairly close, and so he came up to me and he was like, I don't remember why he came up to me, but he said something along the lines of like, oh yeah, you're not like a big real estate guy or anything like that, like you're just like, he's like, you're just trying to achieve financial independence, right? And I'm like, he's like, you're just like the Fi Guy, and I'm like, huh, like, yeah, I guess that's kind of what I am. Like, and it's true. I don't care to build like a massive portfolio or like become a billionaire or anything like that. Like, I just want enough properties so me and my wife and my family can live a happy life and not have to worry about anything. And so I was like, yeah, I guess I am the Fi Guy. And that was funny because that happened in like 2017, maybe 2018. And I didn't come up with the Instagram. I didn't actually create that Instagram until 2019, like later in 2019. And so I looked, I was like, hey, maybe I'll just be, it kind of just stuck with me in my head. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll just be the Fi guy. And it was available, believe it or not. And here we are.
That's awesome. I'm really glad that you actually have something just like that, the Fi team, just because in my eyes, when you're running a real estate team, it's I think where a lot of agents get stuck is they just want to brand it themselves. They want to just say, I'm the John Smith team and welcome to my team. And then I think it's hard to keep talent long term when the actual brand, what everybody's working for, is just somebody's name instead of a vision.
I totally agree, man. And what's in for your team, Nick? I'm sorry.
My team is the REI team.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like the Nick Beveridge team before I
Yeah.
shit on people who name it name it their
No,
name too.
no.
Yeah.
But I've joked
Uh,
about that a lot.
uh,
That there's a reason it's not the Nick Beveridge team. It's because I want people to feel like they're all working for a purpose and they have this company that they can take on like their own and it can grow into a franchise.
I, Nick, I 100% agree with you, dude. And honestly, literally, I think you're the only other person that I know off the top of my head that doesn't have a team with their name in it. And I was like, why does, like, it just feels so like greedy and selfish, and it just rubs me the wrong way, and that's just not clearly who we are. Because you're right, like it's a bigger purpose. It's not the Curelop team or the beverage team. It's the five team. It's the REI team, or it's more than that.
I like that too. Just kind of on taking a different approach to that. Like obviously, I do the hard money lending, we're REI funding, but in my business, what I want to be is I want to be a representative for that. So I want people to know who I am because of the business, right? So people be like, oh, this is Jeremy. This is what Jeremy does because Jeremy does these things. And it works kind of with the branding on that. Like I become part of my own brand at that point.
100%.
So Craig, how long have you been podcasting and has this helped your real estate sales business much or is it just getting going? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so our podcast, it's been a little over 2 years. We just had our 100th episode, so that's how we kind of know that. And we go weekly, and it's been fun, man. I thoroughly enjoy coming on every week, and I'm doing a new guest. Nick, you're coming on next week. Jeremy, we got to get you on too, um, and and just like talking real estate, just having fun. And so I don't even do it for the business per se. I just do it more for fun, and some business comes of it. I cannot track it for the life of me. Some people hit me up on Instagram and say, "Hey, I heard you on the podcast," right? And then they follow me on Instagram and they say, "Oh, hey, by the way, I want to buy a house." And I'm not like, "Oh, is this the same person?" Like, I'm not drawing those lines. I don't have time for that. So, like, um, it has helped me. I think it helps in just staying relevant, staying that hey, like, you're still doing this. It continues to build the brand, and as you want to do other things, your brand is still relevant, and you're basically talking to an audience of, thousands or tens of thousands of people every week.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It is really hard to track. It's hard to track and see like it is it worth it. But I randomly so I did it for the whole year of 2020 pretty much, and then took some time off. I took about a year off, and we just started up again. But I noticed pretty much all of last year, a lot of people that I would speak to would actually point out podcasts that I've done and be like, well, I heard this podcast with you and this guy. And it made me think, I'm like, oh, really? Somebody's listening to that? And I didn't even know till recently because all I can see is my YouTube page and it's each one maybe has 100 views. But I forgot that it's also an audio form everywhere out there. And I went and looked at my Podbeam and it's got like 14,000 downloads plus, and I'm like, oh wow, that's
People are doing stuff.
that's a lot of phone calls I didn't have to make to tell people I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, man. That's it. It's just staying relevant, and also it gives you the opportunity to get on other podcasts, right? And then you can get other people. Like I think that is just a super big skill too, and just refining your skills of public speaking. And like, there's just so much like not the specific podcasting benefits to it, right? So
Like even when I started making content, I've never spoken in public before, but I started making content. I got invited to a podcast, and then Nick asked me to co-host this. Soon I'm hosting REIs, and I'm like, wow, that all happened really quick. But it's all because I started making content and just kept relevant with it. You do a lot of short form content as well on your Instagram page, Craig. Are you anywhere else? Are you on TikTok? Are you on LinkedIn?
MySpace.
MySpace?
yeah, hit me up on MySpace and Snapchat. No, Instagram is definitely the biggest one. I was doing TikTok for a while, but man, I'll admit, like social media, it, I don't like to do social media just to do social media. I like to do like the Instagram Reels. I think are okay. I can do those, but when my whole life is just revolving around content creation, I'm just I'm in a bad mood. And I'm like, I've worked pretty hard for the past 5 years and made some sacrifices so I don't have to be in a bad mood anymore. And so now I really do the things that serve me, and I do like making content, but like I like to do it an hour or so at a time and chunk out, 10 or 15 videos and try to make them as high valuable as possible, versus like, I don't know, just making some weird skits or anything like that. So in short, yeah, Instagram is the number one for sure for me. And I think our team has a LinkedIn and Facebook too. I'm kind of on there, but I don't really post on Facebook as much. I'm more of a lurker on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know we kind of skipped over quite a bit of your history growing this real estate team and just started talking about content creations and podcasts, but that's my bad for not being a very good host. But let's go back if we don't mind. I'm really curious to know a little bit more about this creation of the team. How were you able to bring on talent? How are you able to keep them fed with leads, or is that part of your business model? And what is it like? If you don't mind sharing a little bit of like the operating expenses versus um, the cost of sales and that kind of minutia. And is it worth agents out there growing a team now that you've had a chance to do it a few times?
It's a great question, man. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna like skip forward to kind of where we are today because obviously there's ups and downs and all that, and I'll talk to it as much as I can. But so where we are today is I've got that sheet that person who started off as my assistant is now she's kind of like the COO. Again, it's hard for me to call her that because there's not such a small organization, but like that's kind of what she is. Like she kind of is like the octopus. She oversees everything, like in the business. We have a marketing person. She's in charge of basically any of the events that we throw, any of the graphics that we have. She's doing some like recruitment, like Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff. And she's kind of like an all-encompassing like marketing person. And then we have a person who is like a CRM manager. And so what she does is she goes in and makes sure that our agents are actually like one, using the CRM, two, updating it, three, if there's anybody who's fallen through the cracks, she'll be like, hey, make sure you call this person. And if they don't call her, she'll call them. And if she calls them, there's going to be a split change there if she's saving deals that the agent should have saved. And so those are our three main hires. I've got the assistant in the Philippines. I've got a different like graphics guy too, who's 1099. But that's kind of how the team is right now. So like three full time, and we have a full time transaction coordinator as well. So I guess that's what, six people that I'm paying monthly. Um, that total overhead probably my total overhead is probably like 40 or 50,000 a month. So not like super right. Like so we do have to do business to stay alive. And and yeah, and so like I'll be the first to admit, like in 2020 when I was doing everything myself, I made a shit ton of money. My margins were like 80, 90%. Now they're closer to like 30 or 40%. I'm making probably like a third or a third of what I was making 2 years ago right now. And but
But how much time do you have back?
exactly, yeah, that's where I was going next. But like I could probably work. I do work. I go back and forth. Like when it's nice out, I'm working 10, 20 hours a week. I literally just took a week. My wife just surprised me with a trip to Kauai for a whole week. And I turned my phone off when I got there and I turned it on when I left. So a week without even touching or looking at my phone. And and I had guess how many emergencies I had. Guess how many emails I had to answer? Zero. It was such a big win for me. I was like, wow, I have like one email I have to answer from my accountant, and that's it. And I was like, that like this is it. Like that's why I did it. And so, do I need to make $1 million a year? No. Am I happy making a couple 100,000 and having a life all day? So, and that's not to say like again, we're still growing. I want to make sure I want to get my agents to be there too. I want every one of my agents to make at least $100,000 a year. That's my goals for each one of my agents. And so like, I think they can see that, and we're constantly pouring back into them. I'm not just like chilling the whole time, but I guess I could if I wanted to.
Right. Yeah. How much of your time do you spend mentoring and coaching your agents, or do you have someone that does that?
That's a great question too, man. So we have two meetings a week. We call them powwows 'cause I think meeting is like a stuck. I don't know. It feels kind of like uptight and uncomfortable. Um, and those are kind of trainings. My coach, um, his name is Courtney Atkinson of the Atkinson team up in Canada. He actually puts on three teams or three coaching sessions, sorry, three training sessions a week that our agents are allowed to attend. And so I have them go to those. We have one way that we assess whether our agents are going to be good or not. We created this boot camp. And so it's basically a 30-day boot camp that gets them up and running with the FIDE team, teaches them how to be an agent. Once they get through all of that, if they can get through that boot camp in 30 days, I know they're committed. I know they're going to be good, and we're okay pouring into them. If it takes them 6 months, we don't like I don't pour into them at all. Like if they're not giving us their time, we're not giving them ours. And it doesn't cost us anything to have agents on our team, like $80 a year or something. And so it's not a huge deal to like retain an agent that isn't producing per se. However, it's a perfect litmus test in my example. Is that boot camp?
Perfect. And so if we could talk about this too, brokerages. Um, I from what I know about being an agent and growing teams, there's basically two brokerages out there. You have options of it's either EXP or Keller Williams, right? I don't really know of any other brokerage out there that's really kind of set up to handle big teams. And from what I know, I mean, the biggest difference between the two is like one has an office and one is more virtual, and you get your own office, but it has other perks. Can you tell us a little bit about EXP and what made you decide to go with them, and what kind of services and benefits do they offer, and what are your splits and that kind of stuff, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this was a tough decision for me. Because I made this decision before my first year doing all those deals. So I was like, okay, I was kind of weighing out the pros and cons. Like obviously at the time, Keller Williams was a way bigger brand. I think EXP only had like 20,000 agents or so at the time. Now I think they're close to 100. Um, but I was looking at the differences, and I felt like EXP was kind of up and coming. I wanted to be part of something that was growing. Um, I What really did it for me was what's called if you icon at EXP. Basically, if you hit a certain level of production in Colorado, that was about 28 deals, and I was like, I think I could do 28 deals in a year. And so if I did that, then I would actually get my entire split back. So the split with EXP right now, it's an 80-20 split and the $16,000 cap. So every deal you're paying EXP 20% until you pay them 16,000. Now, after you cap, if you can basically do like I think it's 20 more deals after that in that year, then you're able to get that $16,000 back in the form of company stock. And at every transaction, you're able to purchase at every transaction, I'm able to buy the company stock at a 10% discount. And so I kind of have this hedge of, hey, like every time I do a deal, right? People say put 10% away to your retirement. Well, I take 5% of my commission and buy EXP stock at a 10% discount. So it's basically like I don't know if that math works out, but maybe it's like 15% or so. And I'm like, okay, well, there's my emergency fund right there, right? So I'm building equity in a company, as well as being able to not really pay much of a commission at all because I'm a high producer. And then the third biggest thing was just the revenue share piece, where as I attract agents to EXP, every time they do a deal and I help them do deals, I get a little portion of that, like a couple $100 every time they do a deal. And that starts to add up to being, 5, 10 grand a month at this point. And so again, it can be life changing. It's not life changing for me at the moment, but it's certainly like it pays my mortgage every month. So that was kind of like, okay, that was just like what we had to do. And then I guess like the real kicker too was when expanding, right? EXP is like one brokerage. Um, and so like all around the country. And so if I wanted to open up in a different state, all I got to do is find somebody with a license in that state, and that's it. Don't got to find an office. Don't have to do anything like that. And it's so easy to expand.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so what I guess one thing I'm a little bit confused about, why why would EXP give you your cap back? Or, like what's the financial gain for EXP if, after they've already capped you at 16 grand, which I think is pretty darn good. What what's the purpose of giving you that money back? Like how does that financially help EXP?
So there's only, I think, 1 or 2% of the agents at EXP are actually icons. So that means only 2% of the 100,000 agents that they have, 2,000 of them are actually even receiving it back. So it doesn't. It's more of just like a retention thing. Is kind of how I see it, and it's like it's kind of they make it so kind of dumb for you to leave because we're high producing, and so why now they do make like a couple $100, like it's $250 a transaction from us, right? So it's not like totally zero, but it's like, I mean, it's pretty close to zero, right? Like $250 is almost nothing when you're making a $10,000, $20,000 commission. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's it. And then we're also like, because we're high producing, we're able to attract more people in, and like people from my team, right? They're keeping the money from my team, and you know, those guys aren't becoming icon agents yet. Hopefully they do, but
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Perfect. Well, thanks for explaining that. Maybe we can put that as a little snippet for people that are confused about EXP and how that works.
yeah, and I'm happy to explain it further too.
If there are there any downsides to being at EXP that you're maybe jealous of a Keller Williams agent over? Just curious.
That's a good question. So me personally, no. But the downsides that I've heard, and I can sympathize with or empathize with. I always get those two words confused. Um, is there's no real office, and so sure, each individual team can buy their own office, and we have like offices at Regis and stuff like that. But like, if you want to go to a place, there's not that. So there's not that structure. You got to be a little bit more structured on your own. Um, the second thing is there is the training at Keller Williams, from what I hear, is unmatched. I've never experienced it. I know you guys do. What is it called? You guys go. You guys like two events, right? That are really big.
There's several. Yeah, there's Family Reunion, the Mega Agent. So those are like big national like convention events, but there's an insane amount of training that's like a couple times a week, locally provided. So yeah, you're right. There's tons of training, but you know, if you're not the type that really cares about going into an office to learn, at EXP, from what I hear, there's just an insane amount of training on their website, right?
Yeah, there is a ton of training on EXP World. There's like 30 or 40 classes a day. So if you don't, yeah, if you don't mind learning online, which is not my forte, I'm not really good at learning online. So that would be like another reason why I would choose Keller Williams. But other than that, like I mean, I'm pretty happy with my decision at EXP.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be as wealthy as I am today if I went with Keller Williams 2.5 years ago. Um, but again, who's to say?
All right, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, you found a place to hang your hat, and what's most important about that, obviously, is it works for you. As I'm not an agent, both of you guys are, but I see all these different brokerages, and as long as you're happy and it makes sense for you, like that's what matters.
Hmm. That's it.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the final ending here, though. Anything before we start winding down with the final questions, Nick?
Well, yeah, before we dial down, one something I was listening to a Bigger Pockets podcast recently, and you were the guest about 3 years ago, and it was pretty awesome to hear because you guys were talking about house hacking again, and he was talking about your curtain experience, and then he was talking about his house in his $2 million house in Hawaii that he is house hacking.
Who's this? Brandon?
Brandon Turner.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so he's got a dream house, a luxury kind of house hack. Do you mind talking about your current house hack? That because I mean, you bought a really pretty nice house in a very desirable area of North Idaho, and you're doing the same thing. Like your habits haven't died yet. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, it's funny, right? I'd say this is my first year of like making decisions for happiness over only thinking about like money. Partially because I got married this year and I've got some influence, but
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. Yeah. But as part of that too, we did buy like what's looking like our forever home, as long as the power stays on. Um, but yeah, so it's like maybe 2,500 square feet, which is like perfect size for us. It's got like we got 5 acres. We're kind of building out the farm a little bit. We're south of the river, which south of the Spokane River in Post Falls. We're about 5 minutes to Post Falls downtown, 15 minutes to downtown Coeur d'Alene, 30 minutes to the airport. The house is kind of like perfect for us, and yeah, and so we're really excited about kind of living there and starting a family there. But the house right now it's just me and my wife. We don't need 2,500 square feet. We live in the 1,200 or maybe 1,000 square feet upstairs. And in the downstairs, we are Airbnb-ing out our downstairs. And Jeremy, thanks again for the amazing pictures. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of getting started. And so we haven't had like a month of that yet. We actually have our first guest coming tonight. And so yeah, and so we're hoping to maybe make $1,000 to $2,000 a month there, and our mortgage payment is $3,000 a month. So it's not going to cover our mortgage fully, but that's fine, right? For 5 years, I was living $1,000 over, living for free. So now I'm paying my mortgage, but again, it's for happiness, and we have our dream house for what's going to be like $1,500 a month, say.
You've definitely upgraded your comfort a little bit from sleeping in a curtain, that's for sure.
That's absolutely, yeah, yeah. No curtains anymore.
Yeah, yeah. What's funny is, so like actually the first time I ever heard about you, Craig, I went to the Bigger Pockets Rookie Conference in May in Denver. To be honest, before that I had no idea who you ever were. I was brand new to real estate investing at that point, but you took the stage and you talked about house hacking. And it was really cool. I texted my wife Sam, and I'm like, "Hey, Craig Curelop's here. He lives in our area." And Sam's like, "Yeah, no crap, idiot. We sold him his house."
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was like, "Oh, small world. That's pretty cool." So,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yep.
Small world.
Yeah, that was great. That was such a fun conference. Did I meet you at that conference? Did we talk there at all?
I didn't actually meet you at that one, but I asked one of the questions when you were on stage, and I was like, "Wow, he seems like he knows his stuff," and I love what house hacking is. I had no idea what that was before I went there, so it was really cool to hear you do that.
Awesome. Good. Glad it was valuable.
Yeah, just a little plug too, a little bit on you. I know you're doing a Bigger Pockets house hacking boot camp in January, correct?
It will go in launch in February, but I think science will probably start in January. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know it's open enrollment right now or anything like that. So if anybody's listening to this before it comes out and you want to learn anything about house hacking, I'd recommend two things to you. I'd recommend you get Craig Curelop's book, The House Hacking Strategy. It tells you everything you need. Craig will walk your hand through what a house hack is, how to get financing, how to vet tenants. It was a really great read. Otherwise, I would say go on to your boot camp and just get hand holding directly from you. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to see you there. Thanks, Jeremy.
And then we'll start winding down here a little bit. So we have a couple questions we ask at the end. The first one I want to ask is how have you shifted your approach going forward in investing? I know you're a seasoned investor, but what are your plans going forward, say for the next 5 years?
Great question. So yeah, I kind of had like a come to Jesus moment this year, actually, where again it was like I didn't know if I wanted to like really scale and go into commercial and become this real estate tycoon, or if I just wanted to pick up a few more properties and kind of like live a more simple life. And I think right now we're kind of thinking on the latter. And so I think we're going to looking to get, probably pick up a few properties out of state, maybe 4 or 5 more properties here in Coeur d'Alene, um, and kind of just like get to our number of passive income each month. And once we're there, we'll kind of just like see how we're doing, and then maybe just continue to buy a property a year and not make it stressful, but just because I think like growing is something, and I think as we have kids and all that, I'd like to like teach them lessons by buying a property, teach them how to fix it up, teach them about how analyzing it, and just like doing it together. And so I'll probably use real estate more as a lesson for our future kids than I will for like my own benefit.
Awesome. And then, so if you were to give any advice to new or investor, what advice would that be? Like, how would you recommend they get started or take the first step?
Um, my first, you always want to meet people. And so I'd go to your local meetups. Nick, I know you guys throw a big one. Um, you know, Go to your local meetup, find an investor friendly real estate agent, because usually your real estate agent is like, you want to find that person that knows everybody else, right? And so, Nick, I think you're that person here in northern Idaho. I've asked you quite a few times for people, so thank you for that.
You're damn right I am.
And I think like we're that person in Denver and in Seattle and all that. Like like if you know our agents, they'll know everybody else. And so find that one person that knows everybody else, and you'll be golden. And the way you do that, going to meetups, asking who they use for a real estate agent, and you're gonna find some similarities. I think everybody in northern Idaho that invests in real estate probably use Nick or some derivation of Nick as a real estate agent. And so like that's why I was like, okay, like Nick is probably the guy that we should get to know. And now here we are.
I love it. It's good stuff. And, real estate is definitely all about who you know. There's a lot of value in just going to get a coffee with someone and saying, how can I help you? How can you help me? Let's all win together, right? So this is definitely a team sport. So,
Absolutely.
and then if you were to provide a business or mindset or even a real estate investing book, and you can absolutely do a self plug here, what would that be?
I can't say the house hacking strategy.
You can do whatever you want.
So I guess the house hacking strategy, but that's kind of a cop out because I already wrote that one. But I think my next book I'm thinking about writing is, or I kind of already started it, I guess, is just how to become an investor friendly realtor. I think that's really important, and I don't think it's a niche that's hit hard enough, at least not with intention. So yeah, I think again, our my like North Star, right? Everything that I try to move towards is helping people achieve financial independence through real estate investing, which will therefore reduce the U.S. retirement age. And so, like, I think that book would help if everything I do tries to just help that goal. And so, I think that book would help more agents, help more people. That's a big lever to pull, right? If I can get in front of more agents and teach them how to help people do that. So,
I love it. And then just one final question. So, if you were gifted $30 million in your bank account, what would be the first thing you spend it on?
go bet it on red, make it 60 million.
You seem like a gambling dude. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's a good question, man. I don't really know. What would I do? I guess honestly, I think what I would do is I probably would just pay off all of my mortgages and live off of that passive income, and then have like probably another 25 million or so to like invest and do things like that. I'd make sure to retire my parents and give some money to people that have done me right in the past few years. And but that's probably it. Like I don't think I would like try to make the most of it. I think I would just like be humbled and grateful for it.
It's an interesting question for sure. We had a mortgage lender on last week, and he talked about all how he'd throw that money towards his crop ministry, his teenage help program, basically. And it's awesome just to see what people would do with that. I do have one final question for you, though, and this comes from the Roots of Your Beginning podcast, because I went back and listened to them at the beginning. Craig, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Honestly, I've asked that question so many times to so many people, and I never have a good answer myself. Um, and it changes. Today, a hot dog is not a sandwich.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, because I think a sandwich has got to be, it's got to be like, there's got to be like other things on it than just like condiments, in my opinion. And it's got to be like stacked this way, not like this way. So that's my take today. Tomorrow, I literally would have a different
You
answer.
heard it here first. This could be a changing opinion tomorrow, but right now, a hot dog is not a sandwich.
What would you say?
Oh, it's absolutely a sandwich. You can't change my mind.
Oh,
You got bread,
oh,
you got meat, you got stuff in the middle, you got bread.
oh,
Is a
okay.
panini a sandwich?
Is a panini a sandwich? Oh, I get it's a panini. But a panini's a sandwich because yeah, it's like pressed, right? So it's like yeah, you're
Okay,
good.
you could press a hot dog. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
And like you don't really put unless you're like Portillo's hot dogs in Chicago, you're not like putting real stuff in there. It's just like ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise. Occasionally, you'll put a pickle in there.
Well, onions can go in there. Onions can go on sandwich. I don't know, man. Like this is what the internet was made for, I guess. So
Dude, a hot dog is its own category. Like I've never seen on a menu, like a restaurant menu, you got sandwiches and then you've got like the kids menu with hot dog, or there's different. I've been to like there's the Spokane Comedy Club. There's a menu of hot dogs. So I think it's just its own category of food.
That's a good. Well, the thing is it can't be a sandwich. You just solved the mystery, Nick. If every restaurant out there has a sandwich category and there's never a hot dog underneath that bulleted point, how can a hot dog be a sandwich? You think all the restaurants are just conspiring against Jeremy here?
yep.
Or is Jeremy smarter than all the restaurants?
Oh,
I don't know. My last name's Kitchen, man. I know a thing or two about restaurant work, so
I, Nick's name is Beverage. Man, I'm left out with
yeah.
no like food related last name.
We got a lot of jokes about that in
No, we
elementary
need some
school.
work on your last name, man.
I'll work on it next time.
Well, Craig, where can people find you to find out more about you or follow you on any of the things you're doing?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I'm at the Fi Guy on Instagram, the FI Guy. If you're interested in working with our team, thefiteam.com. And if you ever just want to like just reach out, honestly, like definitely hit me up, shoot me a message on Instagram. I sincerely try to get back to everybody that shoots me a message. And also we've got our own podcast too. So Invest to Fi. That's a podcast where we interview, if you're a beginning stage investor, I'd say we really try to help. We try to really focus on early stage investing, and then people just taking them through their whole financial journey from starting out to where they are today. So
Awesome. Nick, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Hey, so Craig, the microphone logo behind you for your podcast,
yes,
I just got to say it is oddly similar to mine.
is it really?
And I'm just curious, is that where you got the idea?
No comment.
I'm just kidding.
When did yours start?
Early 2020.
Oh, I guess we started ours in I think August of 2020. So it could be.
Okay, just
Yeah.
curious.
You guys probably just went on Logo Maker and typed in podcast, but okay.
That's probably what we did.
Yeah.
We probably just a Fiverr person.
That's
Yeah.
all I did too. Yeah, but it's like the same green color and everything. Mine just has like a little house truss above it, but
Oh, yeah, yours is probably cooler than ours.
I like them both. I can't pick.
I like them both. All right, thank you for your time, Craig. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks for being here, and everybody, see you next time.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.